And welcome to the space weather, everybody, in-depth style. Looking at the colorized magnetogram here on the SDO. To see not a lot of magnetic organization going on here. Little area there, little area over here near the equator. This small area up here is a cycle 25 plage. This area down here is a cycle 24 plage. Here's a view at 171 angstroms, and we do see some filaments in the south. Let's look at the north first. There's an active region rising over here. You can see a little bit of effects in the corona. Here's the south. We do see some filaments over here. We don't see any ejecta, not significant ejecta at least, as I check the stereo A coronagraph on the daily. We're going to look at more stuff about data. First, we're going to talk about robotized paper. 40 proofs supporting the liquid metallic hydrogen model of the sun. Next on the list, transverse waves. See that image there? A gas cannot support transverse waves. Only condensed matter can. Ripples on a pond. You don't get ripples in gas. We've linked to robotized paper. 40 proofs against the gaseous solar model. Here's a video about it. Let's play a clip.
This might be providing evidence that the material which makes up the sun's surface has a layered structure.
So check out the video here on Sky Scholar. Does the sun have a surface? Transverse waves, helioseismology, CMEs, X-rays, and flares. Were you aware that this is what the sun looks like from the North Pole view? Yeah, it looks a little weird, right? That's because the sun has an enduring coronal hole at both poles, where there is a stream of protons constantly blasting out, probably accompanied by a stream of electrons also. We need more study on this. Fortunately, somebody's done some of it. It's the Proba 2 mission. And we've linked to the Science Center. By the way, they do send back daily data. So I'll leave it up to our viewers to check out the LIRA data and the SWAP data and so on. Again, links to this page as well in the description. Let's get back to data. And the GOES X-ray flux is flatlined. Real-time solar wind. Phi angle currently at 134 degrees. Looks like it's kind of jumping around a bit there. Solar wind density's been all over the place over the past 12 hours, currently at 4.05 protons per cubic centimeter. And the solar wind speed at 409 kilometers a second. And there's the data from ACE. Next, we'll look at the geospace magnetosphere movies. Looking at 4 hours of data here in terms of magnetohydrodynamic pressure. And the pressure's looking pretty weak. We do see some anomalies in the ionosphere once again. Some charging nighttime anomalies over the South Pacific. We've been watching it for a week. Anyway, there's the 4 hours of data courtesy University of Michigan. Here are the ground magnetic perturbations. Delta B, otherwise known as changes in the Earth's B field, the field that goes through a magnet. Not to be confused with the polar Z fields, the cone-shaped structures that come out of the ends of the magnet. Anyway, there you see the current perturbations in the surface. 10.7 centimeter radio flux, which is, for you new viewers out there, a measurement of the radio output of the sun's outer corona. And it's very much proportional to sunspot number. It's at 70 solar flux units, right on the orange line that we've drawn in as a visual aid. GOES magnetometer looking fairly smooth as forecasted. And here's the Gong 2 data. showing us to be rather solidly in the South Pole oriented portion of the current sheet, shown here in red. And we do see a little bit of evidence of that active region rising there. You can see there's some field pullback happening. Let's expect to see some stuff south of the equator. And it could just be from that filamentary activity there. You see that green popping out. Let's look at the last frame. And there's the last frame. This data 1 hour and 26 minutes old. Keep in mind, magnetic environments can change with zero warning. KP index has been at 1 for the last 15 hours. And let's look at cosmic rays. First, here's apatity. And we've seen an ongoing creep up here to the highest levels in the past 30 days at apatity. Looks like it finally peaked late yesterday. Barentsburg not showing the same trend. Next, we'll look at the Athens neutron monitor. And there's the last 30 days of data from it. Mexico City's next on the list. There's 30 days of activity. Tell your friends and your foes about cosmic rays. Now, I started studying cosmic rays when I was about 4 years old, but let's save that story for a different video. And here's the Moscow neutron monitor. This one always shows pretty wild swings. And there's 30 days worth of data there at Moscow. And lastly, let's look at Oulu, Finland. By the way, this one is shown on spaceweather.com. This one shows the hourly averages, the 5-minute averages, and the monthly averages since 1965. And for that, we thank you. Here's DOMC Antarctica. And here's DOMB Antarctica. And as always, we left links to this site with a list of cosmic ray stations in the description below the video. So if you want to monitor them, if you want to monitor cosmic rays yourself, feel free. And don't listen to the hype, folks. Don't listen to the hype. Let's get back to data. The GOES electron flux is looking smooth and at fairly normal levels. Relativistic electrons are now at moderate high levels there. And not really that much of a surprise. This will probably drop over the next 2 days. Here's the ionosphere. Looking at 6 hours of this. And you should see these charge up anomalies over the South Pacific. Not as significant as they were a week ago, but still showing up there. And let's bring up the latest image and move on, as there's still plenty of things to cover, including updates on the deadly Albanian earthquake. That 6.4 magnitude quake, now having killed over at least 21 people. There's a last image on the ionosphere. That one coming in at 8:45 UT. The Reuters article we covered yesterday has been updated, and the death count has gone all the way up to 20, as buildings that are not spec'd for earthquakes crumble as a result of that 6.4 magnitude quake. Over the past 24 hours, we don't see any 6 magnitude quakes until just when we started doing show prep. Here's a 6 magnitude quake at Greece. We've shortened the earthquake segment so we can cover more stuff. Here's the pressure maps on windy.com. I would notice massive pressure gradients over the US. Let's just let that advance for 24 hours. Look at the anticyclonic dry air over Canada, as well as a massive anticyclone over northern Asia. And there's where things will be in about 24 hours. It's 3:58 a.m. where I am. Do you know where your pressure zones are? And here's the volcano rundown. It includes Mount Aso, flight level, I don't know. The volcanic ash cloud is of unknown size, but it's probably still erupting. Sanjiang-api, flight level 8,000 there. Dukono, flight level 7,000. Popocatépetl, flight level 21,000. Revenador exploding also, 16,000-foot ash plume there. Sabancaya, puff emissions. Please don't pole vault it regardless. And Nevados de Chilean exploding, producing sporadic puff emissions with a 13,000-foot plume of ash. Please don't fly your John Denver style ultralight over that. Here's where stuff is in the solar system. Here's where stuff will be in 7 days on December 4th. There's going to be a lot of snow all over the U.S. by then. We'll get to it in a minute. And here's where stuff is above my head, and welcome to the cosmology section. We're going back. We're going back to cosmology and encouraging our viewers to understand the distinction between their and a hole in the ground. Black hole nurtures baby stars a million light years away. Now, this is absolutely no surprise to me. As you can see, these relativistic jets coming out of this massive radio source here. And you can see right here a bunch of X-rays indicating stars are in that area. Now, the problem with black holes producing star-forming regions is that matter is not able to condense. Since, like you, stars are made of condensed matter, these jets are at such high energy levels that matter is not able to condense until it gets very far away, loses enough energy, and begins to typically counter-rotate. So no surprise there, but it's a good article. And this is not a particularly well understood mechanism in terms of classical astronomy, mainstream astronomy, whatever you want to call it, gravitational accretion astronomy, Big Bang physics, all of that stuff. Anyway, this article just coming out today, and we cover this stuff so quickly on the channel that it's often incoherent and then sits around in the news wire for weeks. Let's talk about the Whale Galaxy. Radio images have discovered magnetic filaments. Notice the way these magnetic filaments are shown in green. These are the ones that where the magnetic field is oriented toward you, roughly. And the blue is actually, I think it's probably vice versa. The blue is probably oriented toward you, and the green is oriented away. Notice the way that these fields are right next to each other, indicating a possible Birkeland current system, which is fueling those magnetic fields as beams of electrons. Well, let's not get into the physics of it, but the fact is, NGC 4631, otherwise known as the Whale Galaxy, shows large magnetic structures extending well outside of the visible light spectrum regions, an indication that there's a lot of unseen forces happening. And by the way, electromagnetism causes attraction as well as repulsion, depending on field alignments and so on. Yet another unseen force debunking the ideas of dark matter and dark energy in the universe. We've linked to this article as well. This one from SciTech Daily. It'll be all over the Science, Astronomy, Cosmology Newswire today. We've been doing a daily star study every day on the list of nearest stars and brown dwarfs. Let's talk about Ross 248. Yeah, that. Now, this is believed by many to be within the next 80,000 years the closest star, getting even closer than Alpha Centauri. And this one is currently located 10.3 light years away, as measured by parallax, undoubtedly. It is a variable star and a red dwarf, not visible with the naked eye. So if you want to read up about it, we've linked to all that stuff as well as this chart. And here's Ross 248 shown down here, located in the northern constellation of Andromeda. Ross 248, today's star study. Let's go back to data, and here's where the lightning is striking. Looks like one rogue bolt just struck there around West Central Africa. Lightningmaps.org. Let's talk about this article, which is complete and utter nonsense, where people demonstrate the fact that they don't understand anything about the Earth's thermal capacity. For those of you not aware, the Earth's thermal capacity lies in the oceans, not in the atmosphere. You can measure the atmosphere all day. You can even measure the sea surface temperatures all day, and it's not going to tell you anything about the Earth's temperature. Now, the Earth's temperature lags solar activity by 2 to 3 years, and the Earth's temperature is largely governed by the Earth's oceans. In other words, if you don't know the temperature 3 meters deep in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and we don't, you don't know the Earth's temperature, as about 1% of the Earth's thermal capacity is in the atmosphere. Probably even less than that, but at the most 1%. And the other 99% is in the hydrosphere. The latency of heat of water is massive. The latency of air is nothing. This is why your swimming pool takes forever to heat up and cool down, while the atmosphere swings wildly. Listen to this nonsensical series of sentences. Citing the fact that carbon dioxide only makes up 0.04% of the Earth's atmosphere, check out this nonsense. It shouldn't be surprising that a small amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere can have a big effect. We take pills that are a tiny fraction of our body mass and expect them to affect us. So hey, what's the difference between pills and carbon dioxide? They're practically the same thing, right? Anyway, if you'd like to lose some IQ points, read this article. And this is completely junk science based on a flat Earth model of BS. And let's do a little debunking here. But first, let's go to the website where this came from in the first place. The Conversation. Now, I haven't vetted this website, but they've certainly printed one junk science article, which was picked up by SciTech Daily. Tisk tisk, SciTech Daily. And scrolling down to the bottom of the page, I find a million different organizations that are receiving funding to study a bunch of junk science, carbon dioxide nonsense. Oh my gosh, the human race is causing the Earth's climate to change via carbon dioxide emissions. Look at all these organizations that are contributors. I don't even need to look anymore. See all those universities? They're wasting millions and probably billions of dollars studying carbon dioxide and trying to tie it together to a whole bunch of things that it has nothing to do with, such as the Earth's climate. Let's talk about Michael Mann, how we're wondering when he's going to be prosecuted for his complete fabrication of climate science. The originator of the hockey stick graph, who sued Tim Ball and lost, and now must pay all of his court fees for coming up with a fraudulent, phony lawsuit to try to cover up his fraudulent, phony science. We've linked this article also from Principia Scientific. And here's a lovely image of their graphs. Tim Ball's graph on the bottom and Michael Mann's graph on the top, the famous hockey stick graph. And let me show you a little graph here.
Hello, this is Tony Hillard from Real Climate.
See that graph? Notice how during the Cambrian, carbon dioxide levels were at 7,000? And the temperature actually went down? We've left links to this graph also. Please show your friends. I've showed this graph to people who gave up on the idea that carbon dioxide has anything to do with the Earth's temperature immediately on seeing this one graph. Share it with your friends and your foes. and help to stop getting resources wasted. And here's another video that we've linked from Tony Heller talking about actual science and climate science. Let's play a clip.
Another 270 million year old limestone formation. It's an ancient coral reef which is thousands of feet thick.
Anyway, that ancient coral reef sequestered a lot of carbon and oxygen. So anyway, watch the video, the difference between Earth and Venus. Now, a lot of people will say, hey, Venus is hot. There's a lot of carbon dioxide there. It must be because of the carbon dioxide, when it's actually because of air pressure and proximity to the sun. But let's just move on to tropical tidbits and check out the snow forecast through December 2nd. They've actually changed the forecast for where I'm located, which is in the right here by this little corner of the Delaware River, Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. And they're calling for about 16 inches of snow here now through December 2nd. So while most of the area has had their forecast drop, ours actually increased. And look at all of these snowfalls across the entire country, dropping all the way into the El Paso, Texas region. Should be making for an interesting commute throughout the holiday weekend. And there's more snow to fall after that. I just included through December 2nd. Shout out to Mothra. Again, please tell your friends and foes about this carbon dioxide versus temperature graph. Going back 600 million years, showing how utterly, utterly obvious it is that carbon dioxide is not the control knob, some nonsense I've been being taught in formal education since 1987. It's not true, folks, so please don't believe the lies. Here's a US Doppler radar, and we got some serious storming going on. Whether it's heavy rains in California, heavy snow in Nevada and California, and Oregon, and Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, Montana, and it's coming. It's coming. So please be prepared for your holiday commutes if you're driving someplace. Keep an eye on this stuff, folks. Here's the US water vapor map from the NASA GOES interactive weather satellite. And look at that atmospheric river pointing right at me. Looks like it's accelerating as this dry mass of air trailing it is giving it a push. And let's zoom in over Iowa. Shout out Iowan viewers. Check out that nested low pressure system surrounded by dry air, just producing a perfectly counterclockwise rotation there. It's actually weakening the system up a little bit there due to that dry air, making it a little bit less violent around the Great Lakes. But there's going to be some massive pressure gradients, and there already are. Let's check out this other location. Here's kind of the headwaters of that atmospheric river. And once again, you can see very strong forces at play here. And you can see parallel lines that are perpendicular to the mode of travel of the water. In other words, the water's traveling to the northeast. But you see all these lines that are pointed almost due south? We call it the Hall effect, folks. And it's one of the most fundamental forces in the universe, responsible for everything from the formation of those clouds to the formation of stars and planets. Here's the jet stream, which is largely responsible for the planet's weather. And there's what's going on up there. Looks like there's a powerful anticyclone over southeastern Greenland. Extreme meridional jet stream flow, causing massive compression over the U.S., very high-speed jet stream there over the central U.S. Here are the eastern jets, looking a little more normal in the east now. And let's move on to talking about the mission. And we've left links to this, but let's just go over the first one. To assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. It's a delightful time to be alive, especially if you're a science nerd, as cosmology, astrophysics, and indeed physics itself gets rewritten. If you want to support the mission, please support us via Patreon, patreon.com/smashomash. And thanks, patrons, for being associate producers of the show, as that is the source of funding for the channel, and that is basically the only source of funding for the channel. So thanks, patrons. Please let us know if you decide to make the cream cabbage, the family heirloom cream cabbage that we left as a recipe for our patrons only. We'll be having some and not sharing the recipe on YouTube. Although patrons, feel free to share our stuff with whoever you like. And thanks, Smash Team, new viewers, subscribers, etc. Please press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And stay tuned for 1 to 2 bonus features. And we're looking at the north pole of the sun here, 304 angstroms. There is a small active region rising here north of the equator. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And when I say ion, the pun is intentional. Here's the southern area. We're looking at about 9 hours of activity here. We do see a fairly large filament here. And let's look at the 94 angstroms view. There's a scenario in 94 angstroms. Part of the reason we use this is to study flares and things like that. It shows us a few more images. Little plasma sprite here, right there. And otherwise, pretty low levels of activity. There's that active region rising. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for staring at the sun, attempting to understand the physics behind it. We do appreciate your viewership and your patronage. So watch for the channel to continue to grow. And big changes coming all the time. Again, welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back and that atherosclerosis absent from your veins.